Well, hello, I'm Chris, and this is my auxiliary gauge installation video. Now we're going to be putting these auxiliary gauges on a 70 Chevelle with the 454. So in this video, we're going to be putting these in 100% perfect. Okay, we're not cutting any corners. This isn't no bullshit job. We're going to do them as neat as possible. Can look forward to about 2 to 4 hours to do this right. That's how you're going to fit that over the plastic line. A little compression fitting. Just make sure you understand that. So then now you're going to have to figure out how to get these two fittings into your engine block. Okay, so this is water and oil. Okay, so this kit came with 2 for the water. So we need to go and find out which one of these we need. We see the big plugs already for the water jackets on this aftermarket intake. I just took one of those 4 plugs out and my adapter fits right in there. Okay, so for the oil, it has an 1/8 inch national pipe thread. Usually you can just run this straight into the block somewhere, but it does come with 2 adapters. Figuring out where to run the oil pressure can be very tricky on some vehicles. This big block Chevy doesn't have any up on top. We got to go down there by the oil pan on the bottom of the block, and it can be extremely difficult to reach when the car is assembled. So on this big block Chevy, you see the oil filter right there. That's where we're going to run our oil pressure gauge off of. And you see that's a really tight area. I had to take the Z-bar off and everything, so just letting you know it can be extremely difficult to find a place to run your oil pressure off of. That's where it is on this car. Okay, so these gauges are truly being run as auxiliary on this car. We have factory gauges on it. That's a factory temperature sensor. Okay, so this car also has a dummy light switch for the oil pressure. So we're going to be teeing off and running the auxiliary gauge and the factory gauge switch right here. So I'm running the dummy light switch and the auxiliary gauge, so I have to plumb something up here. Alright, so that's what I came up with. Okay, just showing you this so when you see it in the video, you know what this is. We're using this adapter. This goes into the block, so we're going to wrap this with Teflon tape. So if you're going to wrap it, you just always wrap clockwise. Just 2 or 3 times. Alright, so we got that installed and ready to go. Now we do the temperature sensor. Okay, now this is going into an aluminum intake, so we're going to wrap it just clockwise. Okay, so we have the water temperature ready to go, oil pressure ready to go. That's the first hard part. The second hard part is trying to figure out how you're going to run these lines as neat as possible. We're kind of close to that header, something to be aware of. Okay, so my car was a factory AC that I'm not running the AC anymore, so I drilled out the AC wiring, and now I got a grommet that I can use. It's going straight through the firewall. Okay, so that's the next step, is to get these lines ran through the firewall as neat as possible. Okay, the temperature gauge has the line permanently stuck to us, so that's why we're doing this first. Okay, see, we're gonna feed it in. Okay, see our hole through there? Okay, so we've already made our oil line up. So the oil line doesn't matter, you can take it off from either side, so we're just gonna put it through. So if you're around exhaust, the trick is to put that bend in the plastic line away from anything that's going to damage it. So the oil pressure, do that grommet. So now we're just making sure that nothing's in the way. See how that grounding strap is? We would go under the grounding strap. So we got them both on there, just make sure they're away from the engine. Okay, that's it for in here. Alright, so we got our lines ran. Everything's good. Let's get them out of the way. The hard part is getting those things hooked up on the engine. Now all we have is the wiring and mounting the gauge thing. It's best to look for holes already drilled on your car. Okay, so you mount them wherever you want. I already have a screw for the ashtray that I'm going to use for one. Okay, so the kit's going to come with screws. Just drill them out enough. You don't want to bust your dash. So a lot of people, they just can't wait to get in here and drill holes in their dash. No, you need to get them on your engine first and make sure you don't have any problems before you waste your time. So we have everything hooked up to the engine. We do this last. One of the things I forgot to mention is these auxiliary gauges will have amp meters and voltmeters. Now the amp meter, you want to use that, kind of a dead giveaway is if you have points ignition, mechanical ignition, and an external regulator, like a voltage regulator that's external from the alternator, or a generator car. That's what you use the amp meter for, when you have to adjust the external regulator. If your car has HEI or internally regulated alternator, all you need is the voltmeter. So just don't get the wrong one. This car was a factory amp meter car, externally regulated, but I retrofitted it to an internally regulated. I have videos on that. If you are interested, check that out. So the amp meter is a little more difficult to wire up. I don't know if there's videos on there or not, but if somebody desperately needs a video on wiring an amp meter, let me know. But this one we're just using the voltmeter. So let's try to find our wires. In automotive wiring, this is the only time I will ever use these things right here, is wiring in an auxiliary voltmeter. So let's go try to find our wires we're going to run this off of, and our illumination wire. So this is a fuse box just like the one in my car. And for illumination, if you can't find any wires in the dash, lamps or illumination, you would just run it off of a terminal like that. And for the voltmeter, you could just run, there's ignition, accessories, and battery. You can just run off that terminal and just ground it anywhere. So just letting you know, look on the fuse box if you don't want to cut into your dash or can't access the dash. Wire off of that. If you can access your dash, we're going to be using these. This is the only time that I think it's okay to use these, is wiring auxiliary gauges. So we have our heater, AC control light right here. This is our gray illumination wire. We have a ground if we need it. This is where it's safe to wire off your radio if you have to. This is a radio plug. So we have 12 volts on with the key. We can just tap into power wire. You know, just run them wherever you want to. Run them off the fuse box. You ground right there. You do whatever you want, but this is actually 100% acceptable. I'm just using some 22 gauge hobby wire. Really doesn't matter. Auxiliary gauges, I never solder or permanently connect anything, because these gauges do go out and stuff happens. You might change your mind, not want them in there, so I never permanently wire these in. You can solder that, do whatever the heck you want to it. It does not matter. Okay, I found these tiny little ones. We'll go ahead and put these on there. Alright, so that's all you do for the illumination lights. Okay, so we're going to run these off of the radio. It's got our 3 wires, our gray illumination, black ground, yellow power. Okay, but use your brain. Don't splice into the factory wiring harness. Got a plug. We can splice into these 3 wires. Don't do them there. Always leave a little extra for future repairs. So we got our wires right here. Okay, so this is for our voltmeter, and this one we're using ground and illumination. So the way these work is they go over the wires, and then you're going to smash this down. It's going to guillotine and make contact between the 2 wires. So you need these. See, it goes through the wire like that, and then we're going to put like that, and then we're going to smash it. Okay, that's it. Now these wires are connected. Okay, so now we have power to the auxiliary lights. So for the voltmeter, all we need to splice into is just 1 power wire. Comes on with the key. This is the radio power wire, just 1. This is on with the key. We're just going to mark the wire so that we know which one's which. So we just run it back down to the auxiliary lights. Okay, so we have these ran off the radio plug. So this is for our illumination for our voltmeter. But we're missing one. We're missing the ground for the voltmeter. We don't have to run 2 because we got a ground right here. We're just going to make a little short piece. Okay. Alright. So just figure out how much wire you need. We're actually going to crimp these last. all we have to do is cut and adjust these to the voltmeter. So let's go ahead and put all the gauges in. You don't want to run these through wire and harnesses and stuff, so one of these days you're pulling your car apart and then now you got to spend extra time taking this off. You got to run these out of the way. It's always best to leave this long and just kind of wrap it up, because if you do it super freaking tight, something's going to happen one of these days and you can't pull your gauges out. You get what I'm saying? So just leave these long. I'll show them all wrapped when we're done. But okay, this is very sensitive. You barely want to tighten this, and if it leaks, just tighten a little bit more. You don't want to screw up your brand new gauge. See, because there's nothing really to back it. Like, you just kind of, that's all you can do to it. Okay, so now you put the lights on these two. Okay, so see, just get them neat. Okay, so the kit did come with these, but I lost them. So, okay, so that's all you're doing. Okay, so just make sure negative, positive. Okay, I'm gonna get everything wrapped up. We'll take a final look at it and see if they work. So the gauges are mounted up. Nothing's hanging down. Nothing sloppy. Lines come in from the engine bay. You want to wrap the oil line like that if you can, because if you have to make repairs, you have some left. If you just cut a short piece, you're screwed. If you get a hole in it, and it can happen. Okay, now let's see if they work. When you dim them, that's what illumination means. That's why you hook them up to illumination. Battery's not charging, man. That alternator's going bad. Alright. Okay, but you see how it looks now with all the stuff in the way. That's why we took the time to move it all back, because now the lines are super hidden back there. Pulled away from the engine the best as possible. You can't really see them at all with all the stuff on, but you can't even tell they're on there. Okay, that's it for the video. I think these were about under $60 and took about 3 hours to do the job. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.